Hello, everybody, and welcome. And today we've got a short webinar from Canopy, all about how to raise your friends and family round. And for those of you that are tuning in live, what I want to suggest here is that this is very much designed for you to chip in, ask questions, generally find out what you would like to know. And if you're watching this as a recording and you're not live, then feel free to reach out to me on my Canopy email, so stuart@canopy.community, with any questions that you've got, and be super happy to answer those off for you. We're delivering this webinar through StreamYard, but all the comments that you put into the YouTube channel get picked up and put over to the chat here so we can answer them. I'm joined today by Matt and possibly Rachel, but who's a bit poorly, so we'll find out if she's joining us in a sec. Hello, Matt.
Hi, nice to be here.
Good to see you. I've got a similar room at my own home to that one with a nice pot.
It does look quite familiar, doesn't it?
And for those of you that don't know us and you're watching this, maybe interfacing with the Canopy thing for the first time, then I'm Stuart. I'm one of the co-founders of Canopy, and this is Matt. He's the CTO in residence. Matt, do you want to give a bit more of a background to you and what you do day to day?
Yeah, sure. So very much technology focused. Been in software engineering for close to 25 years, which feels like a long time. So these days as CTO, it's more about understanding a product's roadmap, the technical team capability, looking at architecture. So in terms of the Canopy community, it's helping founders in their early steps of, am I working with the right technology stack? Am I working with the right kind of dev team, or can I build this myself? In fact, with some of these new AI-focused co-building tools, so it's looking through those kind of lenses is how I operate these days.
And you've done some investment in the past and been involved in sort of SEIS investments yourself and things, right?
Yeah. So got a few SEIS investments. It's obviously a really good mechanism, a very tax efficient mechanism for investing in early stage startups. So yeah, have seen it from, have been in startups that have received SEIS investment and also made SEI investments myself as well.
Fantastic. So what we're positioning today as is really like a first look at the friends and family round, and there's a very specific reason why we're doing this. So as some of you may know, if you've been hanging around in the community for a while, the last 2.5 years, we've been working with City University of London. And in helping them with their ecosystem, what they tasked us with was to look at how you leverage entrepreneurship as a tool for social mobility. So how you help engage communities that maybe haven't been so engaged before, and then the barriers for entrepreneurship and for startup life with those people. And those groups have some individual challenges, particularly the ones that maybe don't have high liquidity in their friends and family network. So don't come from money is a phrase that's been used before, right? And you've got great ideas, you've got great motivation, but getting through that first stage of how do I try this idea out and who's going to help me survive in this space, that's one of the 3 main barriers to entrepreneurship as a tool for social mobility. So we started looking at that. Myself, Matt, and Rachel, we're looking at all sorts of different options about how we help find funding and sort this stuff out. But what we're really saying as a challenge is you've got the point where you bootstrap, the point where you're funding it yourself. Then you've got the point where maybe some more institutional money, like a venture capitalist, something comes in. And there's this bit in between, this middle bit, which is where the friends and family round comes in, because you've got no product, you've got no customers, you've got lots of hope and ambition, but you haven't got any money. And in order to buy the time to work it out, you need to get it from some people that know and already know you and already love you, because other people aren't interested yet because you haven't got like the proof points. And it's that bit that we're talking about today, the friends and family. But Rachel's joined us from a poorly bed. How are you doing, Rachel? You all right? You are on mute.
I'm good, but slightly absent-minded. No, I'm fine, thank you.
Well, that's all good. While I struggle with my cold a little bit, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell people who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Rachel Sestini. I've got a sort of tax/accountancy background. So I've set up my own business and exited one and still run a different one. So I'm involved in the fund. I work with quite a lot of startups as well on a consultancy basis. And yeah, I'm involved with the fund to sort of bring the numbers focus and the viability.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Great to have you.
Yeah, I was going to say, do I need to explain the reference to me being on my sick bed, or is everyone just happy to take that as read?
For the purposes of this webinar, we'll take it as read, but we can talk more about it afterwards. No worries, no worries. So here's the challenge on the friends and family stuff then. So you need some money. You haven't got anything really to evidence about it. You're not going to get a loan from a bank. Grants may come along, but they might take a while, and you really need some sort of money today. You need less than you used to because of the thing that Matt's talked about with tools like Lovable and stuff enabling to get off the ground. But who do you go to? So who knows and loves you already? It's friends, it's family, it's uncles, it's aunts, it's people who've got savings, and you have to convince them that they'd be better putting their savings and their risk money into your hands so you can use this venture. Do this venture rather than sitting it in their bank accounts. And Matt, when people have come to you and asked you for early stage investment, how have you felt about that? Like, what emotionally, how do you feel about giving strangers money or friends and family money?
Well, I think it's always it is quite an emotional thing, because they're gonna know you and trust you enough to want you to invest in their business. But from a personal point of view, obviously, and having worked within kind of the tech industry, but also kind of within startup industries, I know how high risk it is. Like, these investments are very high risk. So I think I always look from the lens of knowing how high risk that initial investment could be if it's an early stage startup, especially if it's got no traction. So I guess I start working back from it's huge risk. What things has the founder put in place to start to de-risk that for me, so that I can think this actually does make more financial sense as an investment. So that maybe they've got traction, they've got revenue, they've got paying customers, they've done something very innovative with their tech, their marketing's great, they've got a co-founder, founding team is exceptional. There's lots of different kind of things that I guess you have to look at as part of a bit of due diligence around that, even at friends and family level. Obviously, that the ante is upped when you get to different types of investment, and your due diligence gets a lot harder, a lot tougher. But even at that friends and family level, I think having some good DD practices, it's kind of fundamental.
I mean, ultimately, you're trading on your relationship at that point, which is, both good, bad, and ugly. Because I think you've highlighted the very first key point. You are very much convinced about your own idea, but hugely likely to fail at this stage. So every friend and family member that invests, they could ultimately win big if they get some of this early equity and you are successful. But if there were 10 ideas that you had and you ran with friends and family in each of them, at least 9 of them are going to fail at this stage, and you're going to lose all that friends and family money. So you need to know that up front, and they need to know that. And that won't be because you're, remiss. It won't be because you're doing weird things with the money, etc. Or maybe you will, because if you're a first-time founder, this could happen. You might use that money badly. But the likelihood of your idea taking off and gaining traction and returning that money is very less likely to happen than your failure at this stage. Okay, so we're going to talk in a second about the UK ecosystem and how it adds a bit of an advantage, and Rachel maybe can explain how SEIS works for people, because that helps manage some of the risk. But it's, the second key point to recognize is, where are you raising that money? And different countries have different advantages and disadvantages for you to do it. The UK is one of the best ecosystems to raise this early round in, because the private individuals get massive tax incentives if you've got the right kind of company. So Rachel, what is this SEIS stuff, and how do we get to use it?
Yeah, so basically SEIS is the name of one of the HMRC approved ways of making an investment, which give you tax relief. It's designed for early stage startups for the first couple of years. And so very much early idea stage. You don't have to be revenue positive. You need to have a very clear idea of what you're going to spend your money on. So SEIS is, as Stu said, it's extremely beneficial because basically somebody who puts money in gets 50% income tax relief on what they invest. So they invest £1,000, they get £500 deducted from their tax bill. In addition, there's a capital gains tax relief, where if you've got capital gains, you can save 50% of those. So if you've also got some capital gains to cover your £1,000, and they're taxed at 24%, you could potentially on your 1,000, you could save the 500 income tax, and you could save the 240, well, half of the 240 capital gains tax, so 120. So you're actually only £380 out of pocket for making £1,000 investment. So it is a way of making the investor money go a lot further for the startup, is the way I tend to look at it. So you as an investor, you've got X amount to invest net. And if you know that your investment of 1,000 is only going to cost you 500 or 380 pounds in reality, then if your pool that you're investing this year is 2,000, you can actually do, for example, you can do a few more investments than you think if you get this tax relief compared to a company that doesn't benefit from it. So there are guardrails that the company that's being invested in needs to follow. And so this just does slightly, what I find is those guardrails are actually quite helpful, because the questions that HMRC ask are also part of what you would do as an individual with due diligence. What is their business plan? What is the money going to be used for? What runway does it give them? Why are they now in a position that they need it, and what are they going to do with it that's going to make revenue? So if someone can competently answer those questions, then that's actually a chunk of the due diligence you would want to be doing anyway. So in some ways, actually applying for this relief shouldn't create a huge amount, although there's an exercise to go through form filling. It shouldn't require a lot more thinking work than the founders need to do anyway.
Okay, so this is a great thing if you're a founder watching this, to think about, this is how I help my friends and family to invest in me, by giving them this tax offset and in effect de-risking and making it cheaper for them to do it. I think there's also this added piece, which is if you fail as a company, they get to offset a bit more in that tax return of the year where you fail. So it's really reducing the burden on them. And you should, one of the key things for raising in the UK is to make sure you get this SEIS advance assurance, you use it, and you tell your friends and family when they're putting the money in.
Yeah, if I can just cut in against you, just to clarify that. So the one of the nice things about the SEIS relief is you can get HMRC to write and tell you that you are entitled to it before people put their money with you. And that's what we refer to as advance assurance. So this is something to actually do quite early, before you've got people ready to write, or as they're ready to write a check, or before. You can't, it's much better to do that than to do it after you've received any money. So it's a good thing to do at an early stage. I was also going to add in, my 3 pennies worth, which is in terms of friends and family investment. Obviously, the one thing you really do not want to be doing, even if people understand it's high risk, you do not want to be asking people to spend money they can't afford. So part of the advance assurance is actually hopefully getting this to a point that there are some people that where this is within their affordability criteria. None of us want to actually put anyone in a bad financial situation for our businesses, however passionate we are about our idea. But having that advance assurance, it means it's not a maybe that they'll get the tax relief. It actually is in the bag, as long as you then follow the rules as a founder once you've got the assurance.
Yeah, and this sort of reaffirms that point, which is however determined you are, and between us on this call, we've probably done 20 different companies, but however determined you are very likely to fail and lose your friends and family that money at this stage. That's just a natural statistical thing. So keep that in mind. You will be convincing, you will be determined, you will go to your friends and family with absolute confidence that you're going to do amazing for them, but sense check on that reality of how likely you are to fail. So looking at that, it's now about how do you tell the story in the friends and family thing. I think it's helpful to look at the 3 main criteria, 3 main lenses that most investors look at things with, and say, tell your story with these things in mind to your friends and family. And the 3 lenses are desirability, feasibility, and viability. I think we'll probably do it in reverse today. We might do viability first, then feasibility, and then desirability. So Rachel, viability, what is that, and how do you kind of perceive it? What sort of storytelling should there be?
So my view on viability is this a business which physically is capable of continuing to exist? So this is not about whether you're going to 10x it or become a unicorn. This is about can you actually sustain the business, and that is all about, are there real customers out there? Have you done your research to find out, once you know that there are customers out there, that those are customers who are willing to pay what they need to pay for your service or product? Are there enough of them who are willing to pay enough? So it's all about how is the cash flow going to work versus, what are the expenses that are actually going to be required to generate that cash flow? And, a lot of businesses are not cash positive for quite a while, so this then comes down to a little bit more of the mystique around viability rather than the concrete. But, actually, are there enough people who are going to believe in your idea long enough to fund you while you're still becoming cash positive? And so are you able to demonstrate at that stage that the later financial projections are actually robust enough for them to get their money back? As Stu said, a lot of businesses do fail, but, to get investors, you need to show that this is something that really could work. The people are there, they have the money, and you can actually find them and sell, close sales to them and bring in the cash from them in an amount of time that's reasonable compared to the expenses that you're going to be racking up. So for me, the story is all about how am I going to get there? What's it going to require to get there? And actually, what are the returns once I do get there? And then we can move on to the nice bits about how do we multiply up after that.
Fantastic. And I know a lot of investors that we've worked with have really scratched around this kind of unit economic stuff and the viability. And I don't know if you're going to make a widget. I mean, most of the things we talk about day to day are technology companies, but if you're making a widget and it costs you £2 to make it, is there a market that will buy it at £4 so you can make a margin, or are you having to sell it at £1 and make a loss on each one? And how does that unit economic scale to a business, right? That's a pretty basic way of talking about it, but yeah. Okay.
But also, if you can sell it for 4 and it costs you 2, how much does it cost you to find enough people to buy it at 4?
There you go. There's some unique economics. Love it. All right. So Matt, feasibility. How do you view feasibility, and how is it being viewed and talked about with investors?
Yeah, so I think feasibility is essentially can the founder or team around the founder, can they deliver this project? Is it feasible? So there's a number of different ways you can look around that, especially if it's obviously as a CTO, my primary lens is around technology. If it's a technology focused organization, it doesn't need to have to be technology fundamentally, but in most startups these days there's some form of technology. So from a feasibility point of view, can what the founder is very excited about can actually be built in the way that their vision is translated. So can they take their vision and use technology to actually create that? So is the technical risk for anything they're trying to do? So for example, not so much in web technology, but when you come to kind of deep tech, a lot of that is kind of innovative based technology. So it's not standard off the shelf web based platforms that are already out there. So can the vision for whatever they're trying to build, can it actually be done? Is there any technical unknowns as part of that? Is there anything that the founder hasn't got an answer to when pushed in terms of how can you deliver this? And if it is, there's some tolerance on this because obviously ideas evolve, pivots happen within startups. But then they should be able to say, this is the priority stuff that we need. This is the most valuable stuff that our customers really need. We can definitely deliver this, and we can deliver this in this kind of timeline along with this roadmap. There's some really amazing stuff that our customers also need, but it's pushing the boundaries a little bit, and it's going to take a little while to get there, showing a bit of vision. So as long as they can kind of prioritize how they're seeing that technical feasibility, I think that's probably okay for an investor. Next one will probably be can the team actually build it? Do you have the capability? So that's looking at the founding team, whether it's a solo founder or co-founding or a larger founding team? Do they have the technical capability? Do they have the kind of the business capability to deliver on what their vision is? So that's just seeing if they've got any kind of demonstratable previous kind of experience that relates directly to this. A lot of them will have kind of that domain knowledge. They'll be working in industries and will have spotted an opportunity that they want to innovate within. So it's just checking, has that team got all of the necessary skill and experience? And it may be that it needs to be augmented. Have they gone out and found some advisors to help plug those gaps? Have they been proactive about that, or are they kind of going down kind of a bit of a tunnel based on what they know and not broadening what they need to know? Another thing to look at is that kind of technical roadmap. Kind of covered it off in the first point, but looking at what the product's going to be doing on like day one or first kind of release versus that MVP release versus where it's going to be going. What are the milestones? Have they planned those out? Do they know how much it's actually going to cost to build that out? Whether it's going to be like AI code building platforms, or do they need a dev team? How much does that actually cost? So that's all part of kind of feasibility. And then I guess one of the other things as part of feasibility is what have they actually got now to look at. So there's very few investments that happen at ideas phase now. Certainly was more common 5 to 10 years ago, but these days a lot of the time, because tools such as Lovable and Replit are available, especially for web platforms, I think investors around that feasibility are looking for a little bit of traction. They're looking to see what progress has been made so far. Does that prove that there's the market need for it? Does it prove actually that the technology is going to work? Does it prove that the founding team know product really well, know how to make engaging products with really great user experience? And I think probably finally it's kind of that, do they have the resources to bring this thing to market? And one of those resources is obviously going to be financial, and that's why they're looking for investment. But actually lots of founders will come and go, I'm still doing my job 9 to 5. Actually, I've only got a window in the evenings to do this. As an investor, you're probably going to want them to go all in. They're going to have to give a lot of time and effort. So that's all part of the feasibility as well.
And the way I often describe this when I'm talking about it in the coaching sessions is, can it be done and can you do it? Right. And I know that's a bit glib again, but I hope that gives a frame of reference for it. And one of the examples I used to use on the master's course was to say, I've got a great idea. I think we should all go and live on Mars. I think it'd be wonderful. And obviously the Earth will thank us for doing that. Can it be built? Can we build rocket ships to Mars? Well, yeah, there's a bit of technical gap there, but it can be done. There's some people out there making a pretty good job of it. Can I do it? Absolutely not. I'm totally the wrong founder for this idea, and really we should leave that to somebody who's a little bit more engineering based than I am. And so you can have a great idea that just isn't feasible for you as a founding team to deliver, and that's also okay. But your storytelling should be how you are the best people to make it work, right? And how this is a feasible thing to do, and if there is a risk or a gap, how you know about that already. And then the last bit, or sometimes the first bit in this early stage stuff, is how you storytell around desirability. So have you found what we call an innovator customer, somebody who's really compelled to work with you to bring this idea to market, to kind of co-create, somebody who feels the pain so badly and they've tried all these different ways to fix the problem, but they just can't fix it for themselves, and they're really excited to be involved. What do they look like? Do you really understand them? Have you talked to them? Have you interviewed them? Have you built this product in their image rather than just your own? And then how are they engaging with that product and doing stuff with it already? So your friends and family round won't necessarily be as comprehensive as this desirability, feasibility, and viability stuff, but your storytelling needs to have elements of each of it in. And ultimately what you're saying to people normally who know and love you is, give me a chance, risk some money with me. To be honest, you're quite likely to lose it, but I'm going to give this a really good shot. And now I look at the desirability, feasibility, and viability, and I give you my understanding of that as I've got it. But they're backing you as much as anything else in this. The idea might change, the customer might change, all these iterations might happen, but they're backing you as a founder to make it work. So where does that leave this problem, right? So if, like me, you don't come from a world where your friends and family have 50K or 100K to put into your idea, how do you make this work? One way is to just keep bootstrapping for as long as possible, be as lean as you can, and build this stuff out with lovely tools like Lovable. And there's so many different AIs that you can get access to for free, and even ChatGPT. You can go a long way to building and exploring and researching and stuff. This on very little dollars nowadays, things that used to cost you hundreds of thousands. And so bootstrap as long as possible, get enough proof points, and go straight into institutional money. The biggest problem inside that is, how do you keep paying your bills, and how do you do maybe a side job at the same time as being fully invested yourself into doing this thing? And an institutional investor is increasingly further and further away nowadays, because they want more and more proof points, because they've got more things to invest in and they've got time and money to do so. So you got to think, how do I get to them? How do I survive that long? And so what we're trying to do at Canopy is we're looking at all the different mechanisms that could be employed to help you at this level, and particularly how we might put together an SEIS fund to invest in founders that don't have this liquidity in their friends and family network. And we'll be able to tell you more about that at a future date. We're still working it through, and we really want to champion those founders that just don't have access to the funds that they need. We think there's a really underserved pool of talent, and we really want to help them kind of lift through that. So is there anything else you'd like to add, Matt, and then Rachel, before we sort of close out? And if there's any questions from the people watching, please just shove them in the chat.
Yeah, I think we've covered some really good points. I think all I would say is just to echo that point around using the tools out there to just take your idea as far as you can. So don't just rock up with a slide deck. Actually evidence the fact that there's plenty of tools out there now to get user feedback, to do design, to put stand up a landing page and gain some interest. Even in some cases build your MVP. If it's a type of MVP that can be built on these platforms. So I think getting as much of that traction up before entering those investment conversations is definitely a really good idea.
Yeah, I think for me, the other thing is, obviously it is, although it's good to get as far ahead of the game as possible, it is an iterative process. So a lot of people find they do have some initial conversations about investments, and maybe they are still at the slide deck stage, or they haven't really got convincing numbers. But that if in those conversations, if they're taken as helpful feedback, can be really, really useful. Whether it's friends and family or outside investors, they will have quite a strong view on what would work for them and what they see might be the market and things. So they will help you to iterate the idea. So if you start having the discussions and you find you're not far enough along, or things are a bit askew, in some ways those conversations are not just to land the money. That's also what those discussions are for. So it's part of this whole entrepreneurial journey is about going, okay, I did this thing, it didn't work. What do I learn? How do I make this better next time? And so I think sometimes people view the investment part of the conversation as a completely separate bubble out here somewhere, but it really is all part of the process of working out what you're selling, how you're selling it, and how to improve the product or service, and also how you deliver it and how you sell it. So I think there's something about looking at the whole how you're going to get investment as part of that same process of development.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rachel. All right, well, we're going to draw to a close now. I think each of us are going to put our LinkedIn profiles into the chat, so you can reach out to us. And if you're looking at a friends and family round now, or you're struggling with one, we just want to talk through some key points and some objections you're having, then please get in touch. We'll be happy to help you. And I hope this has been a useful addition to your thinking today around friends and family. Look out, we've got a couple more webinars coming up over the next 2 or 3 months, talking about the subject and the different things that we're exploring to try and help people do this round. All right, so I guess we get to do a silly wave at the end, and we'll see everybody later. Thank you very much.